Welcome back to the Cannabis Podcast. And in this video, we're going to take a deep dive look into a 2008 article by the Huffington Post that says what your government knows about cannabis and cancer and isn't telling you. Before we get into it, please like, share, and subscribe. Leave a comment. This information is kind of touchy and the algorithms don't really love it. So the more help you could provide, that would be amazing. Appreciate the community we're building. And without further ado, let's get into the article. Now, cannabis and cancer is a topic obviously important to everybody since it's about cannabis, but cancer particularly for me and my family. My grandmother had breast cancer. My grandfather died of pancreatic cancer. Both my mom and dad have had skin cancer, melanomas. My aunt had melanoma in her leg, had it removed. And I had some cancerous things on my back removed. So, and I'm not the only one. You and a lot of other people know or personally or family or friends have been affected by cancer. Cancer is a massive problem in the United States. So, what possible advances in the treatment of cancer could have been achieved had the U.S. government officials chosen to advance and not suppress research into anti-cancer effects of cannabis? Now, this article came out in 2008 when I was a senior in college, and I was a political science major, and cannabis was a huge topic. I wrote a couple papers on it, and this is very timely. So let's get into it. Back in the day, Ted Kennedy put forward a brave face following his recent surgery, but the sad reality remains. Even with successful surgery, radiation, chemotherapy treatment, gliomas, a highly aggressive form of brain cancer, strikes approximately 10,000 Americans annually and tragically claims the lives of 75% of its victims within 2 years and virtually all within 5 years. So it's within 5 years, you have a 100% mortality rate if you were diagnosed with this. That is very sad and depressing, and we should beat that. But what if there's an alternative treatment for gliomas that could selectively target the cancer while leaving healthy cells intact? And what if federal bureaucrats were aware of this treatment but deliberately withheld this information from the public? In my opinion, that'd be criminal. But sadly, the questions posed above are not entirely hypothetical. Let me explain. In 2007, reviewed over 150 published preclinical and clinical studies assessing the therapeutic potential of marijuana and several of its active compounds known as cannabinoids. They summarized these numerous studies in a book in its third edition entitled Emerging Clinical Applications for Cannabis and Cannabinoids, a Review of Scientific Literature in 2008. One chapter in this book, which summarized the findings of more than 30 separate trials and literature reviews, was dedicated to the use of cannabinoids as potential anti-cancer agents, particularly, that's an easy word for me to say, particularly in the treatment of gliomas, brain cancer. Not familiar with the scientific research? I wouldn't expect you to be, but your government is. In fact, the first experiment documenting cancer's potent anti-cancer effects took place in 1974 at the Medical College of Virginia at the behest of federal bureaucrats, Nixon. The results of that study, reported in an August 18, 1974 Washington Post newspaper feature, were that cannabis's primary psychoactive component, THC, quote, slowed the growth of lung cancers, breast cancers, and a virus-induced leukemia in lab mice and prolonged their lives by as much as 36% across the board, end quote. Now, that is a direct quote from a 1974 study from Medical College of Virginia. But let's keep going. Despite these favorable preliminary findings that were eventually published the following year in the Journal of National Cancer Institute, U.S. government officials refused to authorize any follow-up research until conducting a similar, although secret, preclinical trial in the mid-1990s. That study, conducted by the U.S. National Toxicology Program to the tune of $2 million, concluded that mice and rats administered high doses of THC over long periods had greater protection against malignant tumors than untreated controls. So if you do nothing and just administer cannabis, you'll be better off than doing nothing. Amazing. However, rather than publicize their findings, the U.S. government shelved the results, which only became public after a draft copy of its findings were leaked to the medical journal AIDS Treatment News, which in turn forwarded the study to the national media. In the years since the completion of the national toxicology trial, the U.S. government has yet to authorize a single additional study examining the drug's potential anti-cancer properties. Federal permission is necessary in order to conduct clinical research on cannabis because of its illegal status as a Schedule I controlled substance. Now, updating this article is from 2008. It's now 2026. Donald Trump has now changed the scheduling from Schedule I to Schedule III, opening up all this money that's going to go into this research. So this article is proving the research they're about to get money for has already been done. So that kind of sounds like money laundering to pay for them to release the articles. Anyway, let's keep going. Fortunately, in the past 10 years, scientists overseas, meaning outside of America, have generously picked up where U.S. researchers so abruptly left off, reporting that cannabinoids can halt the spread of numerous cancer cells, including prostate cancer, breast cancer, lung cancer, pancreatic cancer, and brain cancer. An excellent paper summarizing much of this research appears in the January 2008 edition of the Journal of Cancer Research, and we'll pin that article in the comments and in the description. A 2006 patient trial published in the British Journal of Cancer even reported that the intracranial administration of THC, brain, was associated with reduced tumor cell proliferation in humans, growth in humans, with advanced glioblastoma. So they use all these big words like intracranial administration, proliferation. So brain administration of weed was associated with smaller, reduced tumor cell proliferation growth. So for the normal person like me and you, brain administration of weed meant smaller tumor growth in humans with brain cancer. That's what that says. Writing earlier this year in the scientific journal Expert Review of Neurotherapeutics, Italian researchers reiterated that cannabinoids have displayed a great potency in reducing glioma tumor growth. They appear to be selective anti-tumoral agents as they kill glioma cells without affecting the viability of non-transformed counterparts. Not one mainstream media outlet reported the findings. Perhaps now they'll pay better attention. Now, what possible advancements in the treatment of cancer may have been achieved over the past 34 years? And how many lives and people could have been saved? And then what do those people go on to do or create or accomplish? Had the U.S. government officials chosen to advance rather than suppress clinical research into the anti-cancer effects of cannabis? It's a shame we have to speculate. It's even more tragic that the families of Senator Kennedy and thousands of others must suffer while we do. Now you know. If you didn't know, now you know that your government knows about cannabis and cancer and is not telling you the truth. And if we go to an article by Forbes that's written in 2024, it says Nixon's tapes reveal he knew marijuana was not particularly dangerous. But in order to help his coffers and his donors and, Monsanto, military industrial complex, all those big things, he said we need to suppress it. And so what they do, they did the Controlled Substances Act. He started the war on drugs. So this proves that they know what it's about. They know, and President Nixon in 1971 launched the war on drugs as a way to put people in jail, as a way to regulate imports, exports, and just basically, just do Machiavellian political operative stuff and dehumanize drug users because it was in his political interest to do so. And then when you go to the Nixon archives, these things are not there. They're not available. Like, check this out. I clicked on the Nixon archives thing, and why are they not there? That's interesting. So I don't really understand why cannabis is so plant non grata when it can help a lot of people. And they say they're trying to help people. Well, maybe the insurance companies couldn't make a lot of money. Maybe the hospitals wouldn't make a lot of money. It would really put a dent in a lot of industries that are currently profiting off of cancer. You know, it's a different topic, different podcast to say they are actually poisoning us to create the cancer. This isn't going to go down that road. But jumping to the conclusion, there is a lot of cancer that they are then profiting off of. Who, what, when, where, how we get the cancer is all up for debate and scientific study, which is still ongoing. But what is for sure is in 2008, the Huffington Post wrote an article admitting more than 18 years ago that your government knows about cannabis and cancer, and they are intentionally not telling you. And since then, they've put tens of hundreds of thousands of people in jail for cannabis and drugs while using it themselves. They've profited. The DEA, ICE, whoever you want to say, they're all profiting off cannabis being illegal. Now, I'll leave you with this, because now I want you to know that your government knows about cannabis and cancer and they're not telling you. And it went back to 1974, Medical College of Virginia. And I just want to say that I don't think you're mad enough about how much they're keeping from you. I am. I'm certainly mad because I have family members dying of cancer, and my uncle died of lung cancer, and a lot of people around the world are struggling with cancer, most particularly in the United States. So I'm going to put that out there for you to read. I'll pin all the links in the description. Please read for yourself. Click on all the links and see how many of them go to dead links. But these are all published in the National Library of Medicine, the NIH, about the anti-neoplastic activity of cannabinoids. I don't know what that means, but it basically says Lewis lung growth was retarded by the oral administration of delta-9 THC, THC-8, delta-8, and CBN, but not CBD. So they know all this stuff. They know. Sorry. And on that note, stay blessed and don't forget to tip your bud tenders.